Cash Color Cannabis, a high level of conversation on livehiphopdaily.tv, and this episode is sponsored by Ayana Leaf. Ayana Leaf believes in curating premium CBD products and accessories for black men and women. With a coveted lineup of items that run from rolling papers to CBD bath bombs, Ayana Leaf has a little something for every conscious consumer. Click the link in our bio and learn more about Ayana Leaf. And Tree 18. You want to get your brand in front of the right audience? Then you need to tap in with Tree 18. Tree 18 can help you create unique advertising that helps you stand out amongst the crowd. Follow Tree 18 now and see how they can help you reach a new level. And you actually might want to tap in with Tree 18. We was just watching some commercials a little while ago, and man, some of y'all need some visual help. But besides that, we're back here on another Tuesday night in Atlanta at Live Hip Hop Daily Studios for another episode of the Cash Color Cannabis podcast. And for this episode, I have a guest who I honestly did not know even lived in the vicinity of Atlanta, Georgia, until I was on Edgewood one day at Harold's Ice Bar, Chicken and Ice Bar. Give me some chicken wings, because Harold's Ice Bar is bomb. That's a shameless plug. Harold's Ice Bar is bomb. But I was on Edgewood and I hear somebody yell my name, and I was like, who the hell is yelling my name? And I turned around and it was Margeaux Bruner. And I was so shocked to see you, because I was like, what are you doing out here? Like, I know you from Michigan, but what are you doing in Georgia? And you was telling me you live down here. And I was like, oh, well, I got to get you down to the show one day.
Yes.
And here we are.
Thank you.
Here we are. So, yeah, thank you for joining us tonight on the podcast. Now, I'm familiar with Margeaux and your work. I'm familiar with Margeaux and I'm familiar with your work. But for those who are not familiar, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Well, that is multidimensional.
Yes.
My name is Margeaux Bruner, and I am the founder of Holy Smokables. Holy Smokables is a brand of cannabis accoutrements. It is rose petal, organic rose petal, organic lotus. Some of them are sage, cocoa, and or organic hemp. Rose petal cones and blunts. I'm going to be launching in the state of Michigan, Engage and Cookies, in late September. Last year, I was the 2021 recipient of the Gage grant.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes. In addition to that, I was most recently the director of ESG and DEI at TrueLeaf. I was a director of compliance and DEI at a company called Red, White, and Bloom. I used to be a lobbyist in the state of Michigan, and a whole bunch of other things in this particular space.
You really have. It's almost like you have variance. You know, like you've been living different lives in different parts of the cannabis space, but they all been the same Margeaux Bruner.
Yes.
So this conversation definitely tonight is about your life in cannabis. But before we get into that life, speak to us about how you first discovered the plant in the first place. Like, when was the first time you discovered cannabis?
I have loved cannabis since my senior year in high school. Truth be told, it was long and wide. My mother was very much a prohibitionist. Like, she was like, you end up on crack, and you embarrass me in front of my friends.
My father said I end up on heroin.
Yes.
Yeah. You would end up on heroin by doing weed.
Yeah. So. It's weird now, because I joke with people all the time. My mom still doesn't know I consume. She's like, what? Like, do you know what she does for a living? But I have given her friends some cannabis infused products, like not like straight flower.
Yeah.
But I mean, older people have a preference sometimes for edibles, and I have given her friends a few things. So I think we're like breaking the iceberg just a tiny bit there.
Wait, so your mom really don't know that you?
We just don't talk about it. It's like a don't ask, don't tell kind of situation.
It's like the Bruno situation. We just don't.
Yeah, we don't talk about Bruno.
That's crazy.
That's how it goes.
Ooh, I remember the first time I told my mom I smoked. I don't know what possessed me to do this at this moment, because I got a straight from the South mama. You know, I live from Boston, but I got a straight from the South mama, and she is, like you said, a prohibitionist. She was not for it.
Yes.
And I don't know what possessed me to say one day, yeah, I smoke weed. It was like a bold statement. You know how you young and you just don't care about something one day, and you realize later that what you just said is now being hung over you in every conversation where you make a mistake.
Yes.
It goes back. It goes back to, see, it's probably that weed you smoking now.
I knew to avoid that. Yes.
See, but my mom she's cool with it at this point. Well, she's not cool with the consumption, but she's cool with the concept of everything I do, especially living in Massachusetts. Like, it's now so much in her face that she's actually proud to say her son has this podcast. But
so it took
5
a
years
lot
ago
for my mom to get to that point. I think I had to get maybe I was appointed out in the state of Michigan. I had an appointment from the former governor to the Michigan State Police Impaired Driving Committee. I did a lot of random things in this space. But I was a commissioner for 13 months.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, she was like, okay, maybe she's legitimate. But when I first decided I was going to take a pivot, I was a project manager at Ford, and I was just kind of bored there. And I saw an episode of Weed Kid, and they were talking about the Mary Janes and how women were on par to have more C-suite positions in this industry than any other industry. This was like years ago.
I remember
and
that
Women
episode.
Grow was featured there, and I was just completely intrigued. And I went to Denver. I met a lot of people, and I was like, where is this tribe of people in Michigan? And there was a chapter of Women Grow launching in Michigan, and then I ended up becoming the market leader for Michigan. And like back then, Women Grow, the thing about it was like you had your market, and you would meet people from other markets, and like your network just expanded exponentially that way. And I met some of like my best friends. Like I met Kibra in Connecticut through Women Grow, and like we just kind of like put each other on. Like if she was on a panel, she put me on the panel.
Yeah.
If I was on a panel, vice versa. And it just ended up becoming something.
That's what's up, man. So you, I was about to ask you about how you ventured into advocacy, because I do know you have a past. You would have had to have a past in what we call, what is it, traditional business. So you was working as a project manager for Ford.
Yeah.
When did that transition into get into the advocacy side of things that was happening in Michigan?
So it's not quite linear. Like there's a lot of things happening at one time. So first I was with Women Grow, so I was kind of like meeting people, like the lay of the land. And at that point in time, Michigan, like we had our caregiver system since 2008 in Michigan, but that's not necessarily a commercial system. It was evolving into a commercial system. This was like, I don't know, around 2016 or so. And my coworkers at Ford would joke that that was my part-time job because I was just doing a lot of different things. Like I was very entrepreneurial, and I was connected to a lot of various organizations. And I think the first one that I did was Detroit Startup Week. And they were like, oh, you can't come and talk about cannabis in Detroit Startup Week. It's sponsored by Chase Bank. And then I saw that they were going to Denver later that year. And I was like, so you're going to go to Denver and not talk about it? And then, I mean, the powers that be had a conversation about it, and they let me have a discussion about cannabis. And it was the first of its kind there. And like, we had no idea what was going to happen. And I think like 200 people showed up. It was way more people than I anticipated. And the energy was like, people just wanted information, really. And I think the advocacy part, I just always had some duality in this particular space. So I was part of a campaign that brought adult use legalization to Michigan. Mm-hmm. And I am also at the same time very, very aware that every day in America, there are people that get a license to have, a multi-million-dollar business, and there are also people that go to jail in the same country. So I think that's where the advocacy came, just the general awareness that, yes, I am advocating for legalization, but there is a responsibility to understand, the totality of what prohibition did to communities.
Yes. You talk about 200 people showing up and were you nervous when that happened?
Yes, extremely. I had never, at that point in time, I had never spoken in front of 200 people. Like I went on to do a lot of, different, but this was the first, and nobody expected 200 people to be there. Like everybody who signed up didn't show up. Like people saw it on the roster and it's like, oh, I'm gonna come and have this conversation. And at that point in time, I had 5 people on my panel that did like very, very random things in this particular space. Like some people were part of Michigan's caregiver system. One guy was a horticulturalist. One person was a nurse. One person was a marketer. She was from Women Grow also, Jamie, who does Cincy Magazine. She was on my panel back then. We kind of started together. So it just showed that there were multiple things that you could do in this industry, and I don't think people really conceptualized it in that particular space, maybe in California, maybe in other markets, but in Michigan, like, we just didn't conceptualize it that way at the time.
That's so dope. It kind of reminds me of how CashColorCannabis started, because we started off not as a podcast. It started off as an event I did. And we actually did it down the street. And our second event, we had over 100 people come through, and that scared me because the RSVP initially was 20 people. And I was cool with 20 people. You know what I mean? Like, I was perfectly cool with 20 people. This is 2015, and we're going to get into this story too, but Georgia's wildly different from Michigan when it comes to cannabis, laws, all that, man. So the night we had the event, we had 125 people showed up, and you talk about my anxiety ran high for 3 hours because I kept expecting a cop to come through. You know, people kept saying that, and I was like, man, that never gonna happen. And then you see all these people come through, and you notice I only know 10 of them.
Right.
I was shook. I ain't gonna never lie. I was definitely shook, but it helped me get to the point where I could do this show every week. So I'm glad that helped you get to the point where you got used to being the speaker that you are and being a person who can give a real voice in Michigan for cannabis.
Yes. Yeah. I was there for adult use legalization, and that transitioned a lot of different things, but Michigan is wildly different than Georgia. Michigan is all the way live.
Oh, we gonna get to that. Yeah. we gonna get to that. You know, one of the things I thought was dope about your journey here in cannabis was when the Michigan's Attorney General asked you to serve on the state's, what is it, medical marijuana legal workshop.
So after we did adult use legalization, there was a group of people brought onto a policy work group to conceptualize what does the state of Michigan look like now that we're a fully legal state. And part of the process for legalization is political. So in Michigan, you can put things on the ballot. It was a people's initiative. Like, the legislature did not do this in Michigan. And then they had to make laws around it. And that was, a very interesting experience. They interpreted things much more, the attorneys were much more liberal than the politicians. Like, the way the attorneys interpreted the law was completely different than we anticipated. In the state of Michigan, if you have you can, number one, under our adult use, you can just grow 12 plants in your house. Just no paperwork, nothing, just 12 plants per household. In addition to that,
I'm laughing because I'm like, Joe probably got like 8 in his house right now. He can't give nobody.
And then for a relatively nominal fee under the caregiver system, you can become a patient under the medical system, and you can grow 12 plants for yourself as a medical patient, and you can have 5 other patients and grow 12 plants for each of them. So that's 72 plants under the medical, plus your 12 for adult use, and you can grow 84 plants for probably under $2,000.
Shit, you got. No, that's not Georgia. That's definitely not Georgia. But
definitely not.
As you served that position, I know it was definitely a huge task taken on to make sure that the state stayed fair and equitable when it came to regulations. How hard of a job was it for you to push that? I know you did mention that there was a difference between how lawyers interpreted laws versus how legislation.
So that part is easy. So most of the laws that are written in legal states are written by lobbyists or in conjunction with lobbyists. So the laws almost always serve the interest of either taxation for the state or operational businesses for the business owners. Sometimes, like when you go state by state, like equity is a more complicated situation, but just licensure is straightforward. It had some hiccups in the beginning, but I mean, all in all, like, we're fully operational, and you can have cannabis delivered to your house in Michigan. Like, it's not really a complicated thing to obtain, nor is it criminal.
Yeah, that's what's up. I was shocked when I found out that Michigan was going legal with adult use, and it's more because I look at it, I guess, more from the perspective of Georgia. You know how Atlanta and Georgia are 2 different places, to be honest with you. And I always thought Detroit and Michigan were 2 different places. So I was like, maybe in Detroit would rock with this, but I wasn't sure if the rest of the state would go forward with it. But apparently everybody was down.
Yeah, so the city of Detroit proper actually doesn't have adult use. Like, it's legal to possess adult use, but they don't have, you can't buy without a medical card in the city of Detroit, just due to litigation and things like that. But throughout the state of Michigan, you can't purchase with just a driver's license.
Damn, that's fucked up for Detroit.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
That's fucked up for Detroit, man. We need to figure out that one. How we gonna solve that problem? Matter of fact, what is the next course for that? Like, I mean, that is definitely uneven.
In litigation. I don't know.
So I ain't tapped into
This is like the 3rd lawsuit like this has delayed the program. So,
really?
Yeah.
That's whack, man. But laws like that are definitely something hard to navigate around. And I feel like that's another reason why Georgia is the reason why Georgia is dragging behind. Like, it's just, you get into so much technicalities with people, and it definitely slows the process down. So you transitioned though. You had to transition from working as a project manager for Ford, but you also eventually got into working in corporate cannabis, through True Leave.
Yeah. So that was fun. I did get into corporate cannabis. So corporate cannabis was always my goal from day one. And in between then, I did want to be a lobbyist, and that was fun too for a while. But I didn't pass all of those laws for other people. Like, I wanted to do something too. But I wanted to have the opportunity to watch what I interpreted as like the most advantageous thing for me to do. Like, it's one thing to just jump out there and do something, but doing something is not always your best thing.
I feel you.
So I had the opportunity to watch a lot of people with, much more monetized than me, like burn up a lot of money, and learn what to do and what not to do, before I decided to make my particular move. And when I made that decision, one, I had the advantage of, knowing a lot of people in the market and being able to launch in a very, iconic brand as well. But because mine are not packed with any cannabis, like I can sell them e-commerce, like I can move in a way that's slightly different. I had a lot of knowledge of compliance, and I just kind of like reverse engineered that and did something in the margins.
That's cool.
Yes.
That's cool. So during your time with True Leave, do you feel like you accomplished all you could with them?
Yes. I feel like I accomplished all that I personally could during that particular point in time. Yeah. So one thing I'm gonna say about me is that this unusual is like I kind of sit on both sides of the table quite frequently. And so True Leave is a company of almost 10,000 people.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I was almost shocked, but actually, I would guess, there's about 10,000.
Yeah, it's almost 10,000 people. They've got, a lot of stores. In the state of Florida alone, they have almost 118 stores, I think. They're in 11 states. So I had a vast knowledge of state law in a lot of different places. And it allowed me to expand my knowledge, into additional states. I had never done it in the South. I did it in the Midwest. I've done things in the East Coast. I've done things in the West Coast, but I never did anything in the South. Much different in the South. But yes, my responsibility was not exclusively DEI. It was also ESG, which is, reporting about environmental issues, social issues, governance issues. So it did give me a whole new career in cannabis that could transition to multiple things.
Were you nervous about taking on that job? And I'm asking from the perspective of me, because I've actually been offered a position in a corporate cannabis space, right?
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about it all week about what to do with that, because I know how free I like to live. And one thing I don't like doing is working in a corporate structure all the time. Was it hard for you to work in a corporate structure, especially in the cannabis space? Like, was it hard for you to work in this?
I was with the Attorney General. I was a lobbyist. Like, I always had to, keep a certain cadence. Yeah. But I always show up as me.
Yeah, that part. I'm definitely not code switching. Like, you're getting Mecca. Like, you ask for me, you're going to get
this. Yes, there's no code switching. So no, I was not afraid of doing that. And I did get a few a pushback from various people, and I was like, this is the largest cannabis company in the United States. Like, if I feel like I'm the best of the best, why would I not do this there? And it was more well monetized than any other effort, any other point in time.
It's like you're talking to my spirit right now, because that's how I feel right now. This place is talking about is well monetized. They definitely got the bread. They could definitely do a lot of things.
Yes.
I just hope that the Mecca y'all see, be comfortable with this man sitting in this room and having these conversations with y'all, because I'm a want to write what I want to write about.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had done too many things before I showed up at True Leave to be a different person. You could just Google something I said somewhere.
Me too. You can go on Twitter. You can go search my tweets. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be a lot of me being angry at white people. So
no, the only thing I was ever worried about in this space is telling my mother that I was going to work in it. After I told my mother, I don't care what anybody things.
Girl, I told my mom today, and the most she said was, make sure that you get some benefits, because the job you got now got benefits. So make sure you get some health insurance, because they definitely are giving you this. But that's dope. I wanted to hear your conversation about that, because I am in that little crux right now of my life. Like, should I do this? I mean, it's definitely a good offer. It's a good offer.
Yes.
It's a good offer. But you did something that was also dope, where you took all this knowledge that you had and that you were learning while you were working in True Leave and working as a lobbyist and going through all these different levels, to launch Holy Smokables, which I was introduced to about 2 weeks ago. Like, you literally gave me a couple of packs, and I'm about to pack one tonight, because I'm going to buy myself tonight. So and my wife doesn't do papers, so I'm like, all right, she's gone. I could.
Yes.
So talk to us about Holy Smokables, because I thought when you passed it to me, it's the flower concept. You mentioned lotuses and all that. I thought that was super dope.
Yes.
Explain to us about Holy Smokables and what made you want to start your personal business in cannabis through the rolling papers and accessories like this.
So when I decided that I was going to do something in cannabis, I had made the decision I was going to do something. That was a long time ago. And I didn't know what that was. Like, I just kind of like followed the white rabbit. Like, I did a lot of different things in a short period of time that I was enjoying. And at one point in the very beginning, I did want a license in the state of Michigan. I used to want a transportation license. I'm so happy that didn't happen. Because like that is not extremely profitable license. So there's a lot of rhetoric like, oh, this is generational wealth, or oh, this is this, or oh, this is that. Like, it can be, or you can also like burn up a lot of money.
You could lose generational wealth.
You can lose where you live. You can like you can really mess up some money. And so that didn't happen for me at that point in time, but it didn't dampen my interest in this. And at that point in time, I was at a point where I think like I just kind of like found my gift during the campaign. Like the fact that I don't code switch, the fact that I could come and have a conversation with the governor or your grandmother in a church about cannabis. Like I did a lot of conversations in black churches about cannabis. So I just had like a lot of, you know, breadth in the things that I was able to do. And I know I wanted to do something, but it took a process for me to define what that thing was. I do love culture. I love having a contribution to culture. And like many years ago, I had a friend who, the first time we saw some rose cones, she was like, I'm gonna make one. And she made one. But the thing about my friend is like, she's extremely artistic, and like she would never make them. Like she was never in the mood. Like it was just never the right intersection. Like she was not trying to do this commercially. Yeah. Like it was just when she felt like it. And she would do it so infrequently that, and they were so beautiful that when she would do them, I would always give it to somebody else like a gift. Like I never really got to experience them on my own. And I wanted to move forward on this with her, and she just wasn't interested in that. And then over a period of time, like I really molded over my head in so many different ways. Like I said, I was a project manager before at Ford. Like I knew how to source things internationally. Like my whole background, even when I like back in the day when I worked in the mall and I do like merchandising, like I just had a lot of different life experiences along with the ability to watch MSOs do it. So I got to be at the table and see like if I had an unlimited budget, how would I do it? And I also got to deconstruct that, like I don't have an unlimited budget, and how do I still achieve that same thing? And so there was the Gage grant, and I told myself, I was like, I don't have it like really fleshed out, like I don't have a prototype, but I have amazing numbers. Like I've looked at so much data, like I could do this and I could source this. And so I was able to write a very, 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 very solid business plan. Like even at the time I had no prototype.
That's what I was going to ask. So you didn't have any product at this moment?
No, it was an idea.
Oh.
No. But I knew I was going to win with my idea. Like I want you to understand, it's like I knew that my idea was so right now that you would be crazy. You'd be crazy for this not to win. And so it did win. And then that's the thing about it. Like a brand is much more complicated than most people think. Yeah. And it takes a lot more money than most people think. And mine, like I did win the Gage grant, but in addition to that, like it's pretty much like self-funded. And so people saw that I won the grant and they like expected it to be in the market the next day. Like, no, like it's a whole
Yeah, it
lot.
takes time, B.
Yeah.
Everything takes time, B.
It takes time. It takes time. It takes time. And so they have been very, very patient, and I have been very, very gracious for that. And I've been gracious for the time also, because like my best idea wasn't my first idea. Like even the idea of this evolved. Like I went through a whole thing. Like I had to sue one of my vendors. Like then we got back cool, and then
we got back cool.
Like a lot of things happened like during the process that, you know, fleshed out the brand.
Yeah.
Like it, you know, it looks better than it did a year ago. Like, you know, I have more, you know, products to source from different places than I did last year, and I have, you know, 9 SKU numbers to start. So
congratulations. Like I like the name too, Holy Smokables. Like how did you come up with that name? Like was it a play on religion, or was it just
it is not a play on religion necessarily, because I don't think that any one group of people owns religion. It is about elevating your experience. There is some element of ritual to it as well. And when I thought of the idea, Holy Smoke was like, I was listening to a podcast called Masters of Scale with a guy from LinkedIn, and they had the creator of Spanx on there. And she was telling like how when she started the process, she didn't tell anybody. And so when I had the idea, I literally told no one, okay, for a very, very long time. Like I worked on it, and at the time I was kind of like frustrated with my work situation. I worked not at Trulieve, but a different MSO. And I had diversity in my title, but I don't think that they were really embodying certain elements of culture. And it's not just culture, and it's not just a nicety. Like we are culture, and we do purchase, you know, a significant percentage of legal cannabis. And so I was kind of frustrated with that. And so it was like my own passion project to some degree. And I followed certain steps that I know that an MSO would. So the first thing that I did was I locked up all my IPO. Like I bought all, you know, the domain names. And then I hired a team called the Creators Law Firm, some women out of North Carolina, an all-black female attorney firm of women who specialize in trademarking. And so I trademarked my brand. And because I knew even at that point I had so much coverage that if I won the Gage grant and I didn't own my IP, then somebody would come behind me and buy it. And then I would have to negotiate from a different standpoint. So I didn't even want the Gage grant until I had made, you know, certain moves to make sure that I was solid.
Understandable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just went from there.
Man, congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations. Do you have a favorite product?
So I do. My 2 favorite ones are rose and sage. I think are my 2 favorite ones.
Why? Well, that's crazy. We're smoking
They're
sage.
not both. They're not mixed. There's rose and there's sage.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
It's crazy that we're smoking sage. Like, what's it like
Yes.
smoking sage? I mean, and I think about this all the time because even tonight, as I'm trying to start using the products, I'm wondering does it change the taste of the bud any? Like,
a little. So first of all, there's no additional colors. There's no additional scent added to the product or flavoring. Like it is completely in its natural state. So it does increase the terpene profile of about 2 to 4%. So I do think it enhances the entourage effect.
Okay.
It's slow burning. So if you don't pull, then it'll kind of like stop and go out and won't just burn out like that. And so I love it personally. Like I don't like other things now. I could be biased, but you know, I love it.
were you ever into other things? Like I'll often ask some of my guests whether they prefer papers, blunts, or bongs. Like, have you ever other three?
I have tried them all. I always prefer flower. I used to like hemp wraps. Sometimes joints burn up, like I just don't like the way joints burn.
Yeah.
Per se. haven't really been into bong since I was living in like Kalamazoo. Like that's like when you live in a different area and like you got to roll with the bong.
Certain told me Kalamazoo is not a whole lot like Detroit. She said you got to roll with it.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did it in Detroit. Only when I was living somewhere else. And I do have a huge preference for flower. I don't like edibles or other things very much.
That's interesting.
Yes.
So when you think about Holy Smokables, I mean, clearly the line I feel like is tailored towards what you do with the rolling papers, with the flowers and with the flower cones. But do you see you branching out into other products? Like, are there going to be other things that's going to come under Holy Smokables aside from the cones?
So it is a brand, and I do, want to and plan to expand the brand. Part of that brand expansion would include selling the product as a packed item. But that would require, essentially a licensing deal with an existing licensee, which I have not fleshed out like who and what I want that to be yet. But I think I need to like focus on my own launch. Like 9 SKUs is a lot to manage.
It is. For people don't know, you talking about you have 9 separate products. Like that's a lot to manage. Like I could even tell you, even with the shirt line, keeping up with 4 different colors is a hard thing to do. Yes. Especially when you know that some people might like this one in particular. You try to keep one certain one in stock, and then before you know it, they all want this obscure one that you hardly ever talk about, hardly ever wear. So it's definitely a hard thing. So applaud you for doing that.
Yes.
So once you got the Gauge grant, though, how much pressure was on you?
Oh, an insane amount of pressure. Like people started calling me for money. Like it's $50,000. Like, and they don't give you $50,000 at one time. Like they give you $50,000. Like give you like half of it up front, and then like you hit certain sales milestones.
Oh, I would have thought it would have been up front. So no, they break this up.
No, I don't know. Of all the money I've seen given out, it's never
been a chunk all at one time.
No, none of these people give the money all at one time.
Makes sense why people lose money quickly.
Yes.
When they be getting these grants and stuff.
Yes.
Like that.
So there's that. Like it's a lot of sweat equity, and putting yourself out there to get to that particular point. But yeah, like people started calling me like to like financially sponsor things, and like it got really weird.
Oh, the minute they hear you got money, yo, now you the person who needs to be the advertiser. Like, dog, slow down.
And people will, and here's the crazy part. So I work in corporate cannabis, and I will tell you, people will ask me personally for more money than they'll ask an MSO for any day of the week, which makes no sense to me, but like that's just kind of how it goes.
Because it's easier to ask you than an MSO. Like when people think about having to ask money of a corporation, it's always like some scary stuff. You always, matter of fact, you'll 9 times out of 10 you'll actually price yourself down because you feel like you're not worth this conversation. But for some reason, when we're talking to an individual, I need $50,000.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. With a straight face, I need $50,000. Like you won't even like stutter step on it.
Not at all. So.
But you made it. And I think it's really a super dope idea. But you ever wonder about the rest of this market? Because aside from like Bouquet is over there. Shout out to Bouquet. That's one of our sponsors for a long time. Bouquet is super dope.
Yes.
But we have so many different ways of smoking when it comes to papers, when it comes to cones such as like the ones you have. Do you ever wonder about how you will stand out in this crowd of other products?
Oh, I think it already stands out. Number one, it's organic, it's sustainable. I am part of a Sustainable Cannabis Coalition. So a lot of cannabis is packaged in plastic. It is not. It is in a cardboard box. It's got a sustainable bamboo packing sticks. And I think that it honors the reason why people consume, and that's the feeling. Like it's the feeling of receiving flowers. Like, it's a gift. So I think that there's an element of feeling to the product outside of just the aesthetic benefits of it being something that's beautiful, and being able to gift yourself with flowers.
That's what's up. Yes. So you lived in a state and you worked in a state where cannabis was legal, people were able to grow, and then people really had an opportunity to make money legally through cannabis. What made you relocate to a state like Georgia where ain't none of that possible?
Because I don't sell weed. And I work remote.
Is that the answer of the year? Like, she came through with the answer of the year. I don't sell weed. Like, yes. It doesn't bother me whatsoever.
Right. No. So I mean, even if I did, like I work remotely and I travel. So even when I was in Michigan, I was all over. it's good to sit and be still for a minute in Georgia. My launch is still happening in Michigan. First, I'll be launching Engage and Cookies, and then I'll be launching in Curaleaf in Michigan, and then expanding to hopefully New York.
When's the launch start?
Late September.
Late September. I'm trying to think. Well, I would say I would want to try to go out there, but I already know what September's looking like for me. It's going to be kind of hectic. But I would love to see that in person. Like, that sounds so dope.
Yes.
Yeah, so you ready for all that?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
There's going to be a lot of people. I'm going to tell you right now. Like, be ready for a lot of people in your face asking you the same question over and over and over again.
Yeah. Then I'm going to run it back to Georgia. So.
Speaking of Georgia,
Yes.
have you ever thought about putting your advocacy hat on and being that you are in Georgia, and we have a lot of amazing lobbyists, a lot of people down here working on the ground to try to push these laws into different directions when it comes to cannabis down here. Have you ever thought about putting back on your lobbyist hat and your activist hat and coming down here and helping out?
So funny you say that. When people ask me that when I come, like, when you go to Georgia, and I was like, no, that was a very thankless job. No, I will not be doing that again. And then I got here, and somebody really interesting reached out to me to have a conversation.
Are you going to be able to say the name, or are you just going to...
I don't know if I'm supposed to say the name.
It's all good. It's all good.
It was someone political. I would say that. Somebody really interesting politically.
Okay, shout out Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, no. It wasn't Stacey. I think Stacey would support, but I think that politically, like, Stacey's got a lot of work to do in Georgia, and I don't know if she can carry all of that herself. Somebody else needs to carry that. Like, Stacey got a long list of things to do to have to carry.
Man, Stacey's like Darth Vader out here to these Republicans, man.
She is.
They don't like her
She
at
is.
all. And that tells you how much of a serious candidate she is, to the point where, they'll bypass the fact that she's running against Kemp, and they'll immediately go to, you can't let her be president. I'm like, that's how scared they are of
She's
Stacey
going to the
Abrams.
top. It's meteoric.
They shook of her. They shook of her,
So,
man.
I mean, in Michigan, when we had adult use legalization, the way that it works, like, there's only 100 words on the ballot, basically, like, where you vote yes in favor of people 21 years of age being able to purchase cannabis and or hemp. And there was a little bit of social equity, if you want to call it that, but it was buried deep in the bill.
Yeah.
And they didn't even advertise the social equity part because they said it wouldn't poll well. And so that was in Michigan, a place where you could grow 84 plants. It's like, we don't want to talk about social equity, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, like, Georgia would, like, bear the weight of that right now.
Nah, Georgia's still trying to bear the weight of figuring out how to actually give out these 6 licenses y'all apparently gave out 2 years ago. Like, they're still trying to bear that weight.
Yes. Well, I mean, you guys got a 5% THC cap, so
And ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, you got it.
Ain't nobody got time for
that's
that.
the first thing that has to get fixed when you talk about anything.
Girl, legacy market is going to forever flourish.
Yes, at 5%.
At 5%, going to forever flourish, if that's
And
the
the
case.
medical patients aren't served to me at 5%. Like, you have, like, a terminal illness, like 5% is just not adequate medically.
Yeah, they got a lot going on down here, man. But eventually, and hopefully, we will have the right people on the ground. Well, we do already, but we will have those type of people continue to have that energy over the next couple of years. I mean, you're talking about next 5-10 years, honestly, to really fight that fight for Georgia and keep that fight going. When you think about what you have done overall, like, what are you most proud of as far as your life in cannabis?
One, Holy Smokables. I do think that it's one thing to view success as being part of the establishment. It's another thing to create an idea by which you can get paid that's not derived from your actual labor.
Yeah.
So to have a brand or a product, is very, very rare and unusual. And outside of that, the other piece of work that I'm most proud of is my work with the Michigan State Police Impaired Driving Committee, which is very obscure, but Michigan was the first state to not recommend a per se limit. So the presence of THC in your blood does not mean that you're legally impaired, because you can consume today and be impaired. And I can test you next week or 30 days from now, and it's still in your bloodstream, but that doesn't mean that you are impaired. And I did that work with a researcher from University of Michigan, from Michigan State University, the Michigan State Police, their own toxicologist, and a practicing physician. So that is, like, to me, like, on the nerd side of me.
Margeaux
the thing that I'm the most proud of.
Margeaux Bruner is the reason why you don't get pulled over for driving.
Well, I mean, I guess technically it's still illegal to drive impaired in the state of Michigan. It doesn't mean that that's not illegal, but just the way that they test you doesn't mean that I'm gonna take your blood, because
that's wild.
That would be unfair.
Yeah, that would be hella wild.
Yes.
You've done a lot. Like, that's definitely a transition. Do you ever see yourself possibly transitioning back into a corporate cannabis situation? Like,
Never.
Oh.
Never. I will never work in corporate cannabis ever again. I consult to them.
Yeah.
Through my personal consultancy. I sell my products to Holy Smokables, but I will never do that.
She said, they ain't gonna break my soul. She said, breaking my soul. Believe that.
Never.
Oh, you gave me so much to think about, because I do, and I'll talk about it off air, because I got hit with the opportunity kind of out the blue, and I was like, I don't know, should I do this? And I thought to myself, how well do you actually work in corporate America, Mecca? Like, think about this, sir.
So it's kind of different. Like, you expect cannabis to be more corporate than it actually is.
Yeah.
It's a startup, and it's wild in there, and, like, it's not as well structured as I think corporate America is. There are corporate elements to it, for sure. And it is monetized in a way that you probably just haven't seen. Like, that's very, very different.
I'm gonna talk to you about it off air, because the place I'm talking about is super corporate. Like I can't even duck around it.
I worked at Truly.
Yeah, I believe it. Margeaux, you have been an amazing guest. I'm so glad I had a chance to bump into you on Edgewood. I wish I could have shared some chicken with you. Like, we should have stopped by. We should have stopped by Harold's. Now that I think.
Yeah,
about
I was
it,
at Slutty Vegan across the street.
Are you a vegan? Like, so you don't eat meat?
No, I do occasionally eat meat.
Then I should have invited you to Harold's Chicken and Chicken and Ice Bar. I keep getting the name wrong, but it's so damn good. Like, I'm trying to give you a shout out, Harold's.
Okay.
It's definitely good. If you ever want to drop off free wings on CashColorCannabis on a Tuesday night, I will definitely accept those.
Okay.
But Margeaux, before we go, let people know how they can support you, how they can follow the growth of Holy Smokables through social media. Like, how can they learn more about all the things that you do? Let us know.
They can find me at Holy Smokables, HOLISMOKABLES, Holy Smokables, on Instagram, and they can look for me soon on Weed Maps.
And she's going to be on Weed Maps. She's going to be Googleable for real.
Yes.
Margeaux, I totally appreciate you coming through. You made tonight amazing. You definitely were a super, super dope guest. And I wish you nothing but luck with your launch when it happens in late September, and all the future success I know you're going to have.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Now, thank you so much again. And that's Cash Color Cannabis, a high level of conversation on livehiphopdaily.tv.
Thank you. Yes.